I enlisted.
You enlisted? And about what time period was that, David?
1942.
42?
And I got out in 46. I thought you might ask me about when I was there. And I got out a copy of my discharge.
You there through January 24th, 1946?
Yeah, that's when I came home.
Came home. And during that time, the name of your band was what?
The Wolfpack.
Wolfpack Band. Well, that was very appropriate at the time.
I said to the guys, always wear your Purple Hearts. Because playing for frontline soldiers is the toughest audience you're ever going to have. Because in the morning, they'll be going into battle. But if you have the Purple Heart, they'll know you've been through this. It started out with 3 guys, like I told you. Then gradually we'd had somebody that came back from the front. It got up to 18, which is a good sized jazz band. You know that main street that goes by the Opera House?
Right.
That was complete rubble. DSS. We're in the old city. And they almost had to destroy that, and all the rubble fell into that main street. So you had to follow the tanks, had to go in there and bulldozers and clear that main street. There was a couple great hotels on that street too that they wanted to save if possible.
The Grand Hotel.
Yeah. I remember going in there and thinking, whoa, what luxury. This opera house, we checked it out and thought, boy, what a great place. We could rehearse and have a real stage and real instruments. Because you see, we were an unauthorized band. We didn't have any instruments, any music, and we had to trade cigarettes for beat up old saxophones or trumpets. But this was a way of finding some good instruments and having a place to rehearse. So we opened that opera house to the first concert.
No kidding.
Yeah. And it's still well known, and the old timers in Nuremberg would say they were there. And, yeah. And Hitler had not allowed certain kinds of entertainment. Radio City Music Hall sent over the biggest show to ever go to entertain. The Rockettes, I think 16 high-kicking girls, and then the corps de ballet, and then other entertainment. But they didn't have a band. So they requested my band, and we got 2 weeks to go with them. And they went to Omer Ammergau. His hotel was sheets and tablecloths and Germans bowing and scraping, and all these fantastic looking women.
Yeah.
And all the officers demanding to be first in line. We stayed there 2 weeks in rehearsal, and I got a letter from our commanding officer saying you're AWOL, come back immediately. So we went back to Nuremberg, and he was furious. He said, there you are up there sleeping with all those sheiks and eating in those fancy dining rooms. Then he got a letter, or like a telegram, from the head of U.S. Entertainment saying Radio City would not perform without my band. You must return them immediately. So after he's roaring at us, he's saying, you better get back there. And I became good friends with him after the war.
You know the trial was going on at the time?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We were told to eat, because we didn't have a place established yet, in a big, big barrack. Oh, it was bigger than, say, 2 or 3 big basketball courts. And the different armies that were there to guard the personnel. There were Russians there. There were guys from all over Europe. And at first, we were told not to bring our sidearms. And pretty quick, we noticed the Russians were carrying theirs. They broke the rules first. So then we had to decide. We were told to try and make friends. And it was very hard to make friends. Although you ate at the same table, they were a hard bunch to make friends with. They'd been through enough that they just hated everybody in general.
Right.
But they were there to guard, I guess, the Russian diplomats. French would be there, English. Who else? That's the main ones.
That's right. And of course the Americans. Yeah.
Americans. That's how I got to meet some of the guys, but we were never allowed to go to the trials.
That's all.
I don't know why, but some of the kids from the USO, they got to go, special passes.
Right.
A lot of times, you only found out through Stars and Stripes what's going on. But would have been wonderful to have been in on some of those trials. That one prisoner, German, I think the last one left, he may have been the German architect that saved Paris, because he was ordered to mine all the historic places. Do you remember his name?
Albert Speer.
That was him.
Right.
Yeah. How he got by would not, he was trained as an architect and had respect. I wonder if people know how important he was by not, after he had armed and put the explosives in, not to allow it to be blown up.
Yeah.
Well, that was the one thing I was aware of that made me think how fortunate. Just think of the loss of the culture of Paris.
Right.
So that's how I got to Nuremberg.
Wow.
We played last in that area. It was a city near there, and the mayor of the city asked me to come to his office, and he said, "Thank you for liberating our city." Because when we go to these cities, they had been really culturally denied a lot of things. Jazz is uppermost thing that Hitler and the Nazis hated. So he said, I liberated his city. That's an exaggeration, but it's a part of my history.